I am 89 years old, and when I say that aloud, it still feels like I am borrowing someone else's age. Numbers have a way of lying when they are not attached to mirrors. Inside this place, time does not move the way it does outside. It does not flow. It accumulates. It settles into the bones. It becomes posture, breath, expectation. I was not born into tragedy. That distinction matters to me. People like clean explanations, and tragedy gives them one. My childhood did not. It was ordinary, quiet, and heavy in ways that never announced themselves. I was born in a small town that no longer exists in any meaningful way, not because it vanished from maps, but because no one ever had a reason to return. The kind of place where streets ended without ceremony and futures did the same. My father worked with his hands until his hands stopped working. By the time I was old enough to notice, his fingers no longer straightened completely. They curled inward, permanently shaped by labor. He believed this was honorable. Pain, to him, was proof. Proof that you were useful. Proof that you belonged. He spoke little, not because he was unkind, but because he believed words were inefficient. When he did speak, it was instructional, warnings, corrections, advice that arrived too late to be applied comfortably. My mother worked with silence. That was her craft. She knew how to make herself small in a room, how to stretch a meal, how to soften a day without anyone noticing. She rarely raised her voice. When she did, it meant something had already gone wrong beyond repair. I learned early that love could exist without sound, without ceremony. That lesson stayed with me longer than it should have. We did not talk about feelings. We talked about weather, bills, neighbors. We talked about endurance. My father believed a man's value could be measured by how much weight he could carry without complaint. I absorbed that belief the way children absorb gravity, without question. I was a gentle child. That word was never used, but it was true. I liked watching things that worked quietly. Ants carrying crumbs larger than themselves. Dust floating in sunlight. I wondered how such small creatures knew where they were going. I did not yet understand that what I envied was certainty. School passed over me like a shadow. I was not bullied. I was not celebrated. I was present in the technical sense. Teachers remembered my name only when required. Other boys learned how to be loud, how to claim space. I learned how to fold inward without disappearing. That skill would become my most practiced one. At night, my mother used to brush my hair when I was young. Slow, deliberate strokes. She would pause sometimes, as if committing me to memory. I did not understand why that moment would survive when so many others did not. She died when I was 16. After that, no one ever touched me with kindness again. My father grew smaller after she died. Not physically, emotionally. He drank more, spoke less, expected me to become something fully formed overnight. I tried. God knows I tried. But becoming a man without instruction is like being handed responsibility without language. I left school early. Money entered my life before purpose did. Survival has a way of making choices feel urgent and morality feel optional. Nobody teaches you right and wrong when you are just trying to keep the lights on. They teach you necessary. I did not know then that I was already rehearsing my disappearance. I thought I was preparing for life. In truth, I was postponing it. I met her long before I learned how to keep her. Her name was Ruth, and she entered my life the way warmth enters a cold room, without asking permission. She laughed with her whole body, not politely, not carefully, as if joy required movement to exist. The first time I saw her, she was standing outside a bakery with flour on her hands, arguing with the owner about whether bread should be beautiful or honest. I remember thinking she was reckless. I did not yet understand that she was simply alive. She noticed me because I stood still. People like her always notice stillness. She asked me why I looked like I was waiting for permission to exist. No one had ever asked me that before. I did not have an answer. We began walking together in the evenings. Nothing dramatic. Streets, cheap coffee, conversations that did not feel like negotiations. She spoke about books she never finished, places she wanted to see, children she imagined having even though she did not know with whom. I listened carefully. Listening was the only form of love I had practiced. She said I made her feel safe. I mistook that for being enough. I had never been someone's dream before. It terrified me. Dreams require bravery to hold. I treated the future like something fragile that needed protection. She treated it like something meant to be lived inside. When she asked me to move in, I said not yet. When she mentioned marriage, I said after things settle. When she spoke of children, I said someday. Someday became a word she learned to fear. I loved her like a man reading instructions instead of touching fire. I believed preparation could replace courage. I believed delay was kindness.
One night, she traced circles on my wrist and stopped mid-motion. She said, quietly, that I was always somewhere else. I laughed it off. I told her I was tired. I told her I was thinking ahead. I told her I was doing this for us. That sentence did more damage than any lie. The night she left, she packed without noise, drawers opening and closing like careful punctuation. She said she could not keep loving a man who treated life like a rehearsal. She said she was afraid of waking up old beside me and realizing she had never been chosen, only postponed. I watched her walk out. I did not stop her. I told myself I would go after her once I was ready. That was the last time I ever saw her. Chapter 3. The Quiet Crime. People imagine crime as loud, sudden. Mine arrived disguised as reason. After Ruth left, the world did not collapse. That surprised me. I still worked. I still paid bills. Pain became background noise. I mistook that for strength. I worked with numbers then. They obeyed rules. They did not ask for courage. I noticed a gap, something small. Borrowed, I told myself. Temporary. Temporary is a dangerous word. The first time I crossed the line, my hands did not shake. That should have frightened me. Instead, it reassured me. One exception became another. Justifications stacked neatly. I believed I was stabilizing my life, preparing to begin properly. When they caught me, there was no shouting, just a file, a number that no longer balanced, and disappointment that felt heavier than anger. The cuffs were cold, final. I thought of my mother's hands and how long it had been since anyone touched me without restraint. When the sentence was read, I nodded, like a man acknowledging weather. Years, real ones. I still believed this was a detour. The doors closed behind me with a sound that still visits my sleep. Not loud, definitive. I had committed my crime long before I broke the law. Prison does not punish you all at once. It teaches you how to be erased slowly. The days repeat. Ritual replaces time. Count. Chow. Work. Count. Lock in. I worked in the laundry. Heat. Dampness. Other men's lives folded into sheets. I folded carefully. I believed order could save something. Men arrived loud and left quiet. Stories shortened. Names disappeared. Dreams became dangerous. Years piled up. Time pressed down. I stopped imagining myself differently. That acceptance felt like peace. It was not. Prison became context, not punishment. I am an old man now. My body fails politely. I live in the infirmary wing. The guards are kind. None of them know me. I think about death more than freedom. Freedom has become abstract. What I want is understanding. Memory sharpens when the future disappears. I remember small things. Touch, sound, silence. They speak of compassionate release. The idea feels strange. I would be a ghost with paperwork. If I could speak to the boy I was, I would tell him that safety can be a cage, that delay can be a sentence, that love does not survive postponement. If you are free, choose presence over preparation. Do not live your life like a draft you plan to revise. You don't get an edit. That is my life. That is my sentence.